recording. Glad I remembered that.
Oh, I already forgot to tell you that. See that?
Okay, I remembered.
I am no help to you.
I'm going to be recording so that you can go back to watch it, or if someone else in your family or someone else you know wants to be able to watch it, they'll be able to watch it. And I will be posting them on the Prepare RI website as well as the RIDE School Counseling page, so that you can go back to that in the future.
So I can see somebody named Deb Marcello. Hi, Deb. You want to unmute Deb for a second? The reason I'm curious to know for you, Deb, is do you like the idea of having a financial aid Zoom meeting, or would you very much prefer to be somebody in front of you presenting, like in person, and not just during this time?
Well, I would rather be in front of somebody, but this is definitely a very good alternative. I appreciate the chance to get the information.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, so it makes me wonder. I always wonder this, because I always feel like when people get home from work, they want to grab a snack, and you can't sit on the couch because then you're done for the night, kind of thing. So I wondered if people were just like, wow, this is great because now we can just sit at our own leisure. But that's good to hear. That's good, Deb. Thank you for that.
And if you'd like to share, you could share in the chat. Maybe if you are a parent or guardian of a junior, a rising senior,
Yeah, I love that.
rising junior, soon to be junior, rising sophomore, so that we might have a concept of who is here, and some of the things you might be thinking about. I'm also the parent of a rising senior.
Mm-hmm.
Twins, rising senior twins.
We have a few on here. I think.
Oh yeah, a few. Yes, look at that.
Twins, triplets.
I've got a rising senior.
Excellent.
Wait, who said that?
Andrea said that.
Oh, hey, Andrea. Oh, good. Excellent. Yes. I've been there before, folks. My son is going to be a sophomore in college, so I do know the place where you sit right now. Maybe a little different for me, but pretty much, regardless, it's this piece of it is always the piece that parents find most important. So I think you'll get a lot from today.
Okay, so it's 4 o'clock. So I'm Anna Holland. I am the School Counseling Fellow in the Office of College and Career Readiness at the Rhode Island Department of Education. I am, before I was in this position, I was a school counselor at a middle school. And so I have really enjoyed being able to work with school counselors around the state, and part of my work is helping to support parents and families and students in the process of FAFSA and financial aid. Stacy, working with College Planning Center, offers a tremendous amount of support for our families around the state, and has graciously offered to share her knowledge and expertise with all of you today. And they are a great resource to be able to help through this process. So I will turn it over to you, Stacy, and I will monitor the chat for any questions that come up, and alert you to those as we go forward.
Terrific. Okay. Hello, Rhode Island. Welcome to our financial aid presentation, Financial Aid 101. My hope today, first let me start off by saying I'm from the College Planning Center, like Anna said. And the reason the College Planning Center can help you through this entire process, from the time your child starts to search for colleges, which is, for rising seniors, you're in that right now. We help students and parents with the college financial aid information with respect to actually filling out the forms. So when somebody comes into the College Planning Center, they think they're just going to be guided, but essentially we take your forms, we look at them, we fill out the information, and we submit. Okay, not sure what's going to happen this year. We're currently all working from home. Could be that our financial aid season will be from home as well. But honestly, it'll be, we will take you through it. We've been doing since March FAFSAs and CSS profiles right over the phone, and it works just as good. So don't fret. We will get that form done for you, or forms if you need them. A lot of times after our presentation, people want the presentation just to look at. So if that's the case, text my name, Stacy, to 24,000, and you'll get the registration link to download a copy of the financial aid presentation. So I'm hoping to make this presentation the least dry that I can, because financial aid tends to be a little dry. So that's why I want to open it for questions at some point. And anything you have is not a silly question. It's that you've been in it for the very first time, so we all understand. Okay, so the first question is, what is financial aid? Financial aid is any money that helps you pay for college, whether it be federal aid, the money that you get by filling out the FAFSA form, any type of state grant money, institutional money from the colleges. And by the way, the largest amount of money that your children will get will be from the college itself. And then in addition to that, we've got scholarship, which is private money. All right, your kids are going to start filling out scholarships in probably November, but really be filling them out in December and January of their senior year. Okay, and the more money they get, obviously the better for you guys, and the less loan that you'll have to take. So I always encourage parents to make sure that you have your kids stay on that. Okay. All right, so what kind of aid is there out there? We've got merit-based aid. Merit-based money is the best kind of money for your children to get. And the reason for that is it's based on their credentials, how well they've done in school, their grades, their GPA, the rigor of their course load, athletics, extracurricular, and still SATs, okay? But I think we can all agree that a lot of schools are now moving away from SATs. So we probably won't, they probably won't have SATs as a part of their merit-based criteria. Some schools still will, but not all schools. If your child gets merit-based aid, they get it from the beginning of the school year in freshman year of college, and they will have it for 4 years. The only time a student loses their merit-based money is if they go below a certain GPA. All right, usually it's about a 3.0. The colleges want you to maintain that GPA for 4 years. Now, we all know that freshman year is a little challenging for a lot of students. First time away from home, things are definitely a little challenging. So one of the things you can rest assured is that if your student who has merit-based money gets a GPA below 3.0 for the very first time, the school is going to be forgiven, okay? They will say, listen, we get it. It's your first semester, but second semester, if they continue to remain below that GPA, they will lose their merit money, okay? So you need to make sure, and they'll lose it for 4 years, and you can't get it back usually. So you want to make sure your child is, you know, doing the right thing. And yes, we don't want to drive them crazy, bothering them, but keep them on a good schedule, okay? One of the things, you know, in high school that we always have is we're super busy. The kids are super busy in high school. They've got so much going on. So when you get to college, basically you're meeting people and you're studying. But that's not nearly as much as what they were doing in high school. So some students don't manage their time as well as they did in high school. So try to get them right on the right track beginning freshman year. Okay. The other type of need-based aid is need-based aid, and it's based on a family's financial need. It is a family's ability to pay, okay? And you guys have heard of the FAFSA form. The FAFSA form is the form that you will hear about until you get your child to school. Everybody's going to tell you that it's so hard, it's grueling, it'll take you days. But if you come into the College Planning Center, or even if we're doing it over the phone, it'll honestly take us no more than a half hour. So I would recommend to you that that as soon as you find out where your child is applying to schools, that you make an appointment at the College Planning Center to get your FAFSA done. We will open our fall calendar for seniors beginning September 1. So we will start up taking appointments for financial aid forms beginning September 1, but you all can't start filling out your FAFSA till October 1. Okay? So again, calendar open in September, but you're going to make your appointment for after October 1. All right. Now, the question that everybody asks me, do I need to get it out as early as October 1? The answer is no. Okay. The most important thing about a FAFSA form is that you get it out for the school's deadline. So if your child is applying to 6 different schools, you're going to look at every single deadline and determine what the earliest one is. And that is when you're going to fill out your FAFSA form. All right. The earlier, the better. Absolutely. But first come, first serve, no. Okay. You're going to hear that a lot. Usually the schools will tell you, as long as you satisfy our deadline, you're going to get the same amount of financial aid that you would get if you applied by October 1st. So don't worry about that. Okay. So one of the things, parents, I'm going to scoot back here for a second because this is very important to know. So those of you who are on the phone call, obviously, or the Zoom meeting, you're very invested in your child's education. There's no question about it, okay? But the federal government, when filling out the FAFSA, says that the parents are responsible for the education of their children to the extent possible. And I bring this slide up because obviously on the FAFSA form, when you fill out the information, it's going to be the parental information plus the student's information, all right? But I bring this up because I want you guys to understand, as much as you love your children, they're never going to help you retire, okay? So you need to be looking out for yourself as well. So don't stop contributing to retirement, and don't take money out of your retirement for your child's education. The reason for this is because you are older than them clearly, and as parents, we have a lesser amount of time to make up that money. So if you're going to need any type of money for school, it would be great if you had some sort of college fund, but not everybody can do that. So there are loans out there to be able to you know, pick up the slack. I say to parents, first and foremost, please be careful how much you borrow. And the reason for that is because whenever you take a student loan out, it always has you guys as parents for a co-borrower, all right? You are going to be on the loan. A student can never take more than $5,500 out per year on their own. So for example, child graduates in 4 years and they go into repayment 6 months after they graduate. I'm going to guess that most of you don't want to be paying $1,200 a month when they graduate, all right? And that is unfortunately what I do see right now. A lot of students are struggling to get jobs and the parents are on the hook for the full amount. So where they were screaming, yay, our mortgage is almost over, they're saying, but now we just continue with our students' loans, okay? So please be careful how much you borrow, and please understand you will have to retire someday. All right. Okay, guys, back to the FAFSA. I want you to look at the letters here, and FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and the key word there is free, all right? Meaning, if someone offers for you to get a FAFSA form filled out for $75, you say no. If you go on a website and they ask you to pay in the end, you log off, okay? The FAFSA form should never cost you money to send out. Even if you come to the College Planning Center, we are a completely free service and we will help you again. We will do this for you either in person, over the phone, or on a Zoom meeting. So never pay to get your FAFSA form filled out. All right, so this FAFSA form that you hear about, you will hear different names for it, FAFSA, FAFSA, whatever. It is a FAFSA. And a lot of people think that when you fill this FAFSA form out, it's going to come back and say, okay, guys, here's what you're going to get to go to this particular school. It doesn't do that at all. It is actually just an instrument for collecting data. It's for collecting information for the federal government to determine what this family's ability to pay is, all right? So when you fill out the form, it's only going to come back with this particular number that is called an EFC, all right? EFC stands for Expected Family Contribution. And they get all this EFC number from all of the information that you see in front of you. So when you guys go to fill out the FAFSA form, you're going to gather together. For those who are incoming seniors now, you're going to be collecting your 2019 income taxes. That is what we're going to be working off of, all right? So it's the students and the parents' prior year income 2019. If your student did not work, it's completely okay. If they didn't file taxes, that's okay too. All you're gonna put is 0 in their section, or if they worked but didn't file taxes, you're just gonna include the amount of money that they earned for that year, okay? Not at all necessary for either parent or student to have filed taxes to fill out a FAFSA form, okay? So what are they going to be looking at besides the student and parent prior year income? They're also going to be looking at the students' and parents' assets. So the biggest question that people say or have for me is, where should we put this money? Parents, at this point in time, if you've got money in your kids' names that you can comfortably move out without having any tax implications, then you want it in your name rather than your student's name. And here's why. A student, in calculating the EFC, the student's assets are calculated at roughly 36%, all right? Where the students are calculated at roughly 6-7%, okay? So you most definitely want to have the money in the parent's name. And when I'm talking about assets, I'm talking stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, additional homes, and 529 saving college savings, okay? In the EFC, your retirement, parents, is not included, at least not the value of your retirement. The only piece that's included in the EFC is what you guys contribute on a yearly basis. So what is shown on your W-2 as your contribution, all right? So just for fun, you guys later on, go and look under your box 12D on your W-2s, and you'll be able to see exactly how much you contributed. Of that money contributed, they're gonna factor that into the expected family contribution, all right? Okay.
Stacy,
Yes.
there's one question which might be good to just throw out here.
Please.
With the COVID and reduction of wages in 2020, will that be a consideration as part of completing the FAFSA?
Okay, so yes, they fully plan to put a COVID question on the FAFSA this upcoming year. But generally, even if you say, yes, I was impacted by COVID, it's always going to be a situation where you reach out to the financial aid office later. So for example, yes, were you affected by COVID? Yes. And then you're probably still going to report all of your wages as is on your taxes. However, then after that, you're going to call the school and say, hey guys, just so you know, I do have a special circumstances. I can guarantee you that most offices are expecting this, as they have expected it for this year. Okay, so yes, absolutely. Okay, and then the other pieces that have an impact on your EFC is number of students in your household, number of people in your household for that matter. If you have 10 people in a household versus 2 people, the people with 10 people are going to have a lower expected family contribution, more mouths to feed. Okay, number in college. Okay, guys, for you triplets and twins out there, if you're sending 2 and 3 to school at once, here's the bonus. All right, basically, if you have an expected family contribution for one student of $20,000, the feds say that you can contribute $20,000, but you're sending 3 that year, you're going to divide that $20,000 by 3. So let's make the number even. So if your EFC is 30,000, 3 are going to school at once, each kid's EFC is going to be $10,000. And what that does is that increases the potential for financial aid for each child. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Most people will have this situation, but for twins and triplets, they just have to have it. They front load all up front. Whereas a lot of people 2 years later will send someone to school, and that's when their EFC will drop a little bit. Okay. Okay. Another piece that factors in is the age of the older parent. So the older you are, the lower your EFC will be. And I have a lot of parents will say, okay, well, I'm 57. 57 will have definitely a different impact than if you were 40 or 45. Okay, definitely. And they will give you the way it's going to work. And this gets a little muddy, so I apologize for this. When they're assessing your assets, all right, they always put in what we call an asset protection allowance. So they protect some of those, but it is all based on the age of the older parent, okay? So to give you an example of how this may go, say for example, you're 60 years old and your protection for the 60-year-old, your asset protection allowance is roughly, I don't know, 45,000. They're protecting a certain, as you get older, they protect a certain amount of assets, and it gets better as you get older. So that is the bonus to being older. Okay, we always think there's no bonus here, guys, but in the financial aid arena, there is. All right. Let's see. So let's just open this quickly because this always is fuzzy. So who has questions about this particular area and the FAFSA?
So there's a couple of questions I've seen.
Yep.
The first one is, if you have a current student loan, does that factor in?
Sadly, no. Okay, so they don't, on this particular FAFSA form, they don't really look at your debts. They do, however, they consider as a whole, in addition to this asset protection allowance, they also have an income protection allowance. So here's the deal, guys. You're never going to love your expected family contribution number. You're not. I'm going to be totally honest with you. It is always going to look higher than you think it should look. And it's always going to bring to your head, gosh, do they expect us to eat just rice for the next 4 years? That is everybody. And it's fair to say, and yes, when I look at EFCs, I say to myself, that's a little high. They change sometimes based on taxes. But I'm sorry, and I forgot the question on it. Did I answer it?
The student loan, if
Oh,
that factored in.
Yes. So yes, they do not look at your debt, unfortunately, when determining EFC, sadly. For this particular form, that is. Okay, next question.
How does it work if parents are divorced?
Great question. Okay, so on the FAFSA form, they are looking for the custodial parent. So if your child is living with you and going to the school system within that same town, you are probably the custodial parent. If you are getting child support, you are probably the custodial parent, all right? That is the person that's going on the FAFSA form. There are many parents that will say to me, listen, there's no child support, there's equal custody, how do we do this? Again, this is a tough question, and out of our circle, my first reaction is if you both live in the same town, no one has child support, the kids are there 50-50. I mean, I think the answer might be who makes less. I mean, you didn't hear me say that, although I'm on a Zoom call of probably what, 50, 60, 70 people. But I mean, if only that's the situation. But if you have a situation where you indeed are getting child support, you are the custodial parent. Now, let me just make one other comment here. If you are the custodial parent and you are remarried, that new parent is going to go on the FAFSA form, regardless if they are the biological parent. Because EFC is not about family biological, it's about living situation, okay? The only piece on the FAFSA for the non-custodial parent is going to be the amount of that child support. It's going to go under untaxable income on the FAFSA form. Anything else, Anna?
Yes, we have, if I've been contributing to a 529 fund for many years, should I cash it in before we apply for a FAFSA?
So the answer is no, because I don't think you can actually do that without a school in mind. I think there's a couple things you need to know about the 529. first of all, good for you. I'm very excited for you because the truth is this. I never look at savings as a disincentive. You honestly, when it comes to our kids' education, we can never have enough money. So here's the good thing about the 529. The 529 will be counted as a parental asset. So that means that it's only counted at roughly 6%. It is not in the child's name ever. Even if it says for the benefit of the child, it always goes under the parent. So yay, parent. And when you go to pull out that money, you have to have it directed towards something, okay? If you don't take it out for the educational purposes, you will have a different tax on that, okay? The other thing that I should mention about 529s, if you have a grandparent who has a 529, an aunt, a friend for your child, you do not have to put it on the FAFSA form for this year. But I would wait to spend that money until the child's junior or senior year. And the reason for that is because the moment the money goes to the financial aid office, it becomes student income for the next year on taxes, okay? Now, I will tell you this, it's self-reported, it's on the honor system, but you always obviously want to be upfront. So for example, if grandparents have a 529, you go ahead and spend it in junior and senior year, you don't really have an impact at all on the FAFSA form. So if it's somebody else owns it, use it a little bit later. Parents, if you own it, you can absolutely use it when they start school. How do you use it? Everybody asks me that question all the time. It doesn't, I think if you have a 529 with the Rhode Island, it's always good to give them a call and you can ask them. But honestly, I remember I have a savings account for my son, and I remember having to dole out money that very first year, and you think to yourself, oh, painful, because you've been saving for so long, and it really hurts just to disperse it all out in one year. So maybe you guys say, well, I think we'll do it in 4 increments for 4 years, and maybe you monitor what the student loan rates look like so that you can determine if they're low. We'll go ahead and take out a loan maybe now if they're really low, and you know, save some of the money going forward. One of the things you should know about 529 is that if you are fortunate enough to have so much 529 and have some left over, you can then transfer it to the next student. Okay. Anything else, Anna?
Does a house count as an asset?
Great question. The house does not, your home you're living in does not count as an asset on the FAFSA form. Now I'm going to address the CSS profile later, and we did have a question on that, but no, you're not going to count the house you're living in. What you are going to count, like I said before, is any additional home you have. If you have assets like additional homes, what you're going to do to determine what the value of that house is, you can either look on Zillow, or you can get it, you may have a handle of what your additional home is. You're going to take the value of the house, you're going to subtract any debt on that house, and the difference becomes the asset for you when you're putting it down on the FAFSA form. Okay?
So next question, if a parent is in school using financial aid, will that affect the child's financial aid?
Okay, so here's the way it goes. I'm never sure when this question is asked whether they mean, is it going to hurt their child? So I guess the answer to that question is, if you're wondering whether it would hurt your child, no. When your child goes to fill out their FAFSA, when you fill it out with your child, it's going to ask how many people in school, and you're going to answer 1. You're going to answer your child, or if you have triplets and twins, it'll be 2 or 3. You're not going to include yourself on your child's financial aid, but you are, when you go to fill out your financial aid form, you're going to include your children in college plus yourself. So if anything, it has a better impact for you possibly.
And a follow-up question connected to, for divorced parents, if there's a 50-50 arrangement, so like joint custody, they don't each file the FAFSA. One person, you sort of work it out, and one person files the FAFSA. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, there's only going to be one FAFSA for your child's name in one academic year. Yes. You'll make that decision who is going to be the parent, custodial parent.
And here's a question, Mike. And Mike, I don't know if you want to unmute just to clarify. I'm not sure I completely understand. You said, does the amount change depending on the school? Do you mean the EFC or the amount that you of aid that you're getting?
I was it was more the aid that you receive depending on the cost of the school. Some schools cost more.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, depending on the schools that factor in.
Yep, and we're going to get to the next slide and show you how that works, Mike. But yes, so the answer is yes. Obviously, so what happens is this EFC number is based off of your taxes. So that doesn't change. That's constant, okay? But like you said, every school has a different cost of attendance. So the higher the cost of attendance, subtracting out your EFC gives you a larger need. So you could get a lot more financial aid at a more expensive school. Yes, that's the answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so
I just want to, Selva has her hand up.
Sure.
So I don't know, and then I'll go back to the other questions afterwards.
Okay.
So if Selva wants to ask her question.
Thank you so much. First of all, I really want to thank you all for this wonderful information session. I have a question that is related to the state of Massachusetts. My son is doing his high school in Rhode Island, but we do have his small college savings we are doing for him is in Massachusetts in 529, and as well as something else. It's called some state U fund or something. It's called MIFA.
Yes.
So how does that state fund and stuff affect the financial aid he can apply for?
So are you asking, so the 529 plan and the U fund are very similar. Okay. So they will have they will look at that and assess that at a certain percentage, and that will be in your name. Okay. So again, it's the right place for it, and it will have maybe a little impact on it, but usually the 529, unless you have $1 million, doesn't have an enormous impact for financial.
The state fund, it is kind of the tuition, the percentage of tuition fee. We are actually locking it for the years. So, but still, it has the same impact as 529 has.
It does. And one thing you all have to realize is these factors, okay, they all have an impact, okay? So, everything together is what makes your EFC. So again, it depends upon how much you have, but I have found in the past that those particular funds don't, make it or break it for a college for financial aid.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody? Okay, so are we good for a little bit, Anna?
Yeah, there's some more questions, but I have them, and so we can go through and then I can go back to them unless you want me to. There's 3 more.
Okay, let me get past a couple more slides. I think we're on like slide 3. So and this is normal, guys, absolutely fine. But let's just we'll go further a little bit because I want to explain how this works. Okay, so this EFC that you guys get just by filling this FAFSA form out, again, it remains constant. So here's what the school does with it. Every school has their cost of attendance. I'm going to be focusing on what we call direct costs, and that is room and board, tuition and fees, essentially. But all these 4 of them are indirect and direct combined, and they create what we call a budget at the school. So this cost of attendance includes everything here, and the way the school handles this to determine what your need is going to be is they take your cost of attendance. So for example, I'm going to pick on URI a little bit. It's just easier. And I'm going to say maybe URI costs $30,000 this year. All right. So URI would take their total cost of attendance of the $30,000. They would subtract out the expected family contribution that you guys get by filling out the FAFSA form. And the difference between the two is your financial need. Okay, so if your cost of attendance is 30, your estimated family contribution is 10,000, then your need at URI would be $20,000. Does that make sense, everybody? Are we good? Thumbs up? Okay. So what happens is schools are not always able to give as much financial aid as you would want. Okay. So if your EFC was $10,000, and URI says, okay, $30,000 is our cost. your need is 20, we expect that you can pay 10. So many people at my presentations always say, so who's going to cover the other 10? Okay, that's the big question. Sorry, guys, that's you. So that's called a gap. So in addition to your expected family contribution, the school may not be able to fill all of your need. So you may have that 10,000 gap plus your $10,000 expected family contribution. So your full amount to pay for the year at URI on this scenario would be $20,000. So clear as mud, right, folks? Do we have questions on that one, Anna?
No additional ones
All right.
from the other ones
All
on,
right.
on general financial aid.
Okay. So because, okay, so now we're at types of aid. So Anna, let's address those last 3 questions.
Okay, so the first one is, my son is working this summer and has his own savings. Should I take the savings account out of his name?
Okay, great question. The answer would be maybe. If he has $20,000, I would say sure. If he's got $2,000, absolutely not. Give him a little money, let him have it. Even $3,000 and $4,000 doesn't make a big difference necessarily. 10,000 kind of significant. Okay, so make sure if you explain this to your child, if you are going to put it in your name. When you say take it out, I would say that you're going to put it in your name. Don't throw it under the mattress, because when you come for financial aid, I'm going to say, how much does your son have in his savings? You're going to tell me 0, and I'm going to say, how much does he have under his mattress? So it's not about bank. It's about how much cash your child has, okay? So put it in your name, count it as yours, and again, yours is counted at less. The other thing is explain to your child why you're doing this. I've had a number of kids call me and say, hi, can you just tell me when I can get my money back, please? So I'm not sure why, but they get a little nervous. So just tell them it's for their sake, right? Anna, sure, go ahead.
So another question in regards to divorced parents. So they switch off every other year for who claims the child. So does this mean whoever claimed the child in 2019 would be the one who fills it out this coming year?
So the answer to that question is no. Filing, who claims somebody in the financial aid on federal taxes has absolutely no impact on the FAFSA form. The financial aid doesn't care, okay? It is all about the custodial parent and who is that parent, all right? When you have a custodial parent in a divorce situation, I would make a decision and don't try to make switches along the way, because all of a sudden somebody doesn't have a job, or someone got remarried. That raises a red flag. So you need to make a decision from day one without generating questions from the financial aid office. Okay, I think we have that final question, Anna.
Yeah, and then if I start to fill out the FAFSA by myself and get stuck, can I save it and seek help from College Planning Center?
Yes, you absolutely can. But so here's what I do find what people do. Sometimes people start it, save it, start it, save it, and then it's, moving into 3 weeks. Guys, again, takes us 15 to 20 minutes. Don't put yourself through that. If you get to a point where you're 3 weeks in, wrap it up. Okay? Okay. What kind of aid do we have out there? Well, there's a couple kinds of aid. Obviously, you all want to make sure that your kids get gift aid. Gift aid is truly a gift. It never needs to be repaid. And to determine what is gift aid, you will see the term grants and scholarships. You can count on that being free and not ever having to be paid back. Then there's the self-help aid, which is loans and work study. So I think a lot of people just get really nervous in this process, and they will sometimes think a loan is free. I'm not sure why, but I think it's just too much. Everything's a lot coming at them. So anything that says loans clearly needs to be paid back. Now, I said to you guys before that loans, I don't want you to borrow too much, and I stand by that 100%. And believe it or not, my parent organization is a lender of student loans, but even they adopt that philosophy, is that it's just too much. So the student is going to be eligible for some student loans. And those are, and I'm going to explain those to you in a second after I talk about something else that I didn't occur. This slide was coming up. Okay, so we talked about gift aid. This is gift aid. When you see a federal Pell Grant in your financial aid package, you accept it. It's $63.45 for a lot of people. It may be less based on how much money you earn. Everybody asks me, how much money do you need to make to get a Pell Grant money? I mean, I can say roughly 45,000, but if you're someone or 50,000, but if you're 50,000 and you have a lot of assets, you're not going to have eligibility for Pell Grant, okay? So if you have high need, you might have this Pell Grant opportunity. And I like to show the Pell Grant. It's not a lot of money. It's $6,300. Sometimes schools it costs $50,000. In the big scheme of things, it's not a lot. But when your child is going to Rhode Island College for say $10,000 and they get more than half of that covered by a Pell Grant, and then maybe a little bit of a federal loan, then that's a good situation. Okay, so make sure you guys always keep an open mind for Rhode Island College and CCRI. And I will tell you a little bit about the program at CCRI coming towards the end of the slides. Okay, so one of the packages, if you have high need, you may see some Pell Grant money in your financial aid package, all right? If you have need, you may also see federal work study. Federal work study, I usually see about $1,200 to $2,000 given from the federal government. And that is not money that's taken off of the top of what you owe for financial aid. That federal work study is put there for the student to earn, okay? So the student would have to go on campus, apply for a job, and get one. And they have $2,000 to make at that school, okay, before the department would have to kick in money. If your child gets federal work study, I usually say to people who are in front of me, how many of you plan for your child to take work while they're in college? And I don't get many people raising their hands in the audience. So the answer to this question is that if your child gets work study, your child should do their work study. And that federal work study is just another way for your child to be able to manage their time better and keep that merit scholarship, okay? Because it's not that taxing to do a work study job in college. It may be in the gym, it may be in the library, but basically you're probably checking IDs. And you can bring your homework and do it, and it's less money for you to send as a parent. Let them make a little money. It is absolutely reasonable for your child to do work study. Now, I have had people say, I'd love for my child to do work study, but we didn't get any. Work study is one of the only things that I would say, give the financial aid office a call and say, hey, listen, any chance there's anything there that my child can do? Because those are the easier jobs to get on campus because, again, the department doesn't have to take it out of their budget. Okay? If you get Pell Grant, you may also see this federal supplemental opportunity grant. Again, free and amazing if they can get it. So if you see all this stuff, you are psyched, and you're going to accept all these awards as, yes, I'm taking them for my child to go to school. Okay? Now, I was starting to talk about the loan. Every child, when they fill out the FAFSA form, is entitled to a loan. It is limited, okay? Every freshman is entitled to $5,500, and that's all right? And when sophomores are eligible for $6,500, and juniors and seniors are eligible for $7,500. I say that if you plan on taking out a loan, any loans at all, start with these loans, okay? They are completely reasonable to put in your child's name. They do two things. Number one, they build credit immediately for your child. Second thing is because they are limited in your child's borrowing capacity, all you will have for them in the end in these loans will be $27,000. And that payment for them will be roughly $280 a month for 10 years. Any kid can handle that, regardless if they have a career. They can work anywhere and be able to maintain the 281. So here's the bonus of this particular loan, parents. It is not, your name is nowhere to be found on this loan. This is completely them. So it is a good loan. It's the very first loan you would want to take. All right. Moving on to the parent loan. At this time of the year, I have a lot of parents calling in for financing options because at the College Planning Center, in addition to financial aid, we then take the parents, we help the parents and students with helping them interpret their financial aid award letter. And then after that, we help direct them towards their best financing options. So we really do everything for free at the Planning Center, soup to nuts, admissions, financial aid, award letters, financing. All right. Now, a lot of parents will say, listen, I need a loan, and how do I do this? This is a huge question for parents, and I say there's a couple things you need to remember and need to think about. Beside the federal loan of $5,500, whose name do you want this in? That's number one. This parent loan is a federal loan, and it's, I would say, probably one of the easier loans to get. So if you guys have a little shaky credit, pretty good credit, but it's a little maybe teetering, this would be the loan you'll go for, because they only look at your credit score and that's it, okay? Now, one thing you have to keep in mind, this particular interest rate, you know what? That particular interest, it will be lower for you guys. It's a little over 5%. My apologies. This says 7.08. That is not the case at all. It's roughly 5% in the upcoming year. So for you guys, you'll have to look at it and reevaluate again in that May before your child goes to school to see what the new rate is. All right. Now, the Parent Plus loan is a good loan. You know, you can actually defer it if you'd like while your children are in school, but it's only in your name, and it's never going to be in your child's name. So if you're okay with it, then, you know, it's something you could get, all right? And it's very easy to get. You find out very quickly. But if you say, I want to be a co-signer, but I want my child's name to be on this loan as well, this is not the loan for you, because you can never, ever put it in their name, all right? However, is the loan for you if your credit is a little unsure, okay? All right, RISLA, that's what I mentioned before. They're my parent organization, so I will tell you about them. However, I will always say to you, you should always look at 3 different lenders before you choose a loan. It just so happens that RISLA has been probably the lowest in the country for about the last 4 years. They continue to be. For the lovely woman I spoke with from Massachusetts, even though they are a Rhode Island-based agency, Massachusetts parents, Connecticut, whomever, can apply for the RISLA loan, okay? You can take the RISLA loan out of state and, you know, wherever you need to go, okay? But this right here, that has changed, and it's changed recently. So you're gonna just ignore a little bit of this. So RISLA's rates are fairly low. They have a couple of different kinds of loans, but their loans, they have an immediate repay loan right now at 3.99. Now, one of the things you need to think about is whether or not you can handle an immediate repay when the time comes, because the moment that you apply for that immediate repay, you're in it for 10 years. You can't say, you know what, as it turns out, I cannot start paying it now every month. So if you guys feel that it's not going to be comfortable for you, it might be something you defer, so that when your kids are out of school, you guys can either do it together or your child can take care of it. Okay? All right. So scholarships. When your child starts to apply to colleges, the last thing they want to do is fill out more applications. I can tell you that right now, okay? But they've got to, okay? They've got to definitely do it, because even though they might be small scholarships, they're going to be scholarships. And rischolarships.org is a lot of Rhode Island-based scholarships right now. And also, I want you all to go under risla.com, because they have a scholarship for Rhode Island residents. That is for Rhode Island residents only. It's called Knowledge for College. And it requires your child to take a little financial literacy test. Very quick. It's 3 questions. And once they take those 3 questions and answer them, they don't even have to answer them correctly. It's an education process. But once they're answered, they get put into a scholarship pool for a $2,000 scholarship, okay? That will start up again in October of this upcoming year. And that will be every single month. So if your child applies in October and they don't get the scholarship, they apply again in November, December. Keep applying, okay? And for those kids that were diligent enough to do it for the 10 months that we have it on our website, or however many months, they will be put in a special pool to be picked to see if they can get a scholarship, just for being like yet diligent, okay? All right, so scholarships, absolutely important. Parents, you can help your students with this piece of it, because this piece is very, very daunting. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of scholarships out there, and I can't pinpoint any one scholarship, but focus on the ones that your school has, that your high school has, because that's where they're gonna be likely to get the most money, okay? Okay. I told you guys before that the largest amount of money that you get in a financial aid package is going to be the institutional grant money. All right. And that institutional grant money is, in fact, based on your FAFSA form. All right. It varies. It can vary from school to school, but for the most part, I would say that you're probably going to see a very similar financial aid package from all the schools your child applies to. All right. Some very high prestigious schools will offer very generous grants, but they also, so the neediest students oftentimes make out. Okay, but please know, schools like Brown, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, they are 100% need schools. That's what we call them. And someone in the questions had said, how do you get 100% need cover, or how do you get your whole school paid for? So the question is, can we get a free ride? I don't see a lot of free rides, honestly. However, when you apply to some of these schools, and you can Google schools that cover 100% need, and you, if you apply to them, all your needs should be covered from those schools. It doesn't mean you won't pay anything, because you still have your expected family contribution to pay, but then you can get some pretty good money. One thing you need to know about these schools that cover 100% need, they do cover 100% need, but they don't give any merit money. All these schools like Brown, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Columbia don't feel like they have to give merit money, because everybody is smart that goes to those schools. So their financial aid is completely based on financial need, and they very rarely put loans in that package. So if your kids have potential for those schools, by all means, make sure they apply to them. Okay. Okay. Anna, are we good, or do we have any questions?
We have a few questions.
Yeah.
One is, if the student studies out of state, does that affect financial aid?
No. Okay. So if they study out of state, does that affect? No matter where you apply, the school is always going to look at your expected family contribution to determine what they give you for aid. Okay, so that shouldn't happen. Any type of scholarship should be portable to take with you. But going out of state, one thing you have to realize, though, state schools that are out of state, like UVM, UMass, you may not see a huge amount of money from them, because a lot of the state schools don't actually have a lot of money to give. Okay, so everybody gets worried. They say, listen, my child can't apply to this school. I'm going to keep them in state, and it's got RIC, URI, CCRI, and those are amazing schools. But if you got to reach, if they want to reach and they want to apply to a couple more schools out of state and the very expensive ones, you have the conversation early with your kids and say, listen, I know you want to, reach a little further here and go out, but we need to see what it's going to cost for financial aid before we make any kind of decisions. Okay, but the most expensive schools sometimes do give a lot of financial aid, so don't limit them during the admissions process. Okay, go ahead, Anna.
Do you expect schools to have even more difficulty filling need with their COVID expectations, like in light of COVID?
Filling need, I mean, if this continues, yes, I do. I see a lot of schools closing, in fact. But I think one thing, my big joke is this. I think what's going to happen with COVID is that parents are going to say, listen, I want you to stay close, and I want you to go to a school close by. So a lot of those schools, our state schools, are going to be filled to capacity. And some of these schools that are more expensive and harder to get into are going to probably take that second tier. So if your kid has a dream school right now, I think this is the time that you should probably have them apply to that, if anything. My big joke is, so the solid C student is the kid that may be going to the Ivy Leagues this year, because you don't know. They're going to be minus, international students, a lot of these people. So yes, it will be affected if they don't get the kids on campus in the future. But, and you will be the future. So that is a possibility. There could be many, many changes coming about when your kids are ready to go to school. I wish I had more answers than that.
What if the student goes back to school after the 4 years? How would loans work? So I'm assuming that means like they graduated and they go back for like a graduate degree.
Okay, so if they go back for a graduate degree, they're on a whole new plane for loans. They get $20,000 in federal loans per year, and they can apply for their own loans. Like the Parent Plus loan turns into what we call the Graduate Plus loan. So you can apply for all those loans and absolutely cover your cost of tuition. The downside to grad school is there's not a lot of free money in grad schools at all. So it is majority of loans.
And I'm wondering if she was wondering about the deferment of the loans.
Oh, okay.
I don't
No.
know. I'm just guessing.
Well, I'll just say this. The loans will be, when you go to grad school, do you have to pay them right away? Well, you do get the 6 months grace period when you have loans. All right. So if you're going directly to grad school from there, you can always call the lender and let them know I'm going to grad school, and they'll usually defer them while you're in grad school.
Okay. And then my son goes to school in Rhode Island. Can I still go to the College Planning Center if we live in Massachusetts?
I guess I'll let you. No,
And
absolutely. Happy to.
are there any prepayment penalties on any of the loans?
That's a great question. Yep. So a lot of parents will say this, listen, we would like to pay on our students' loan while they're in school. And I say, good for you. The answer to that question is no. Most loans do not have prepayment penalties. I would just have you look to the loan that has the largest amount, and really the one in your name that's private, and pay on that one before you pay for your kid's federal loan. Because again, that's a lower interest rate, 4%, and that let them handle that one. That is completely acceptable for them to handle in the long run.
That's
Good?
all of them.
All right, great. Okay, guys, moving on to the CSS profile. I'm going to touch upon it. Anna, how are we doing for time?
We have 6 minutes.
6 minutes, yikes. Okay, so, well, first of all, this is not where it ends, guys. You call us at the College Planning Center, and we make an appointment right now over the phone to talk further, okay? So don't worry about that. CSS profile is an additional financial aid form that some of the private schools use, okay? So Wheaton, Providence College, RISD, Brown, Boston College, Boston University, they will also use this form. Why do they use another financial aid form? Here is why. They take a deeper look into your finances. So as you can see from the FAFSA form, they're not asking for the value of the house. They're not asking for the value of your retirement. So some schools say, listen, we just need a bigger peak in order for us to dole out our own institutional money. So here's what we need to do. We need to get information on your home. So when you do the CSS profile, you'll see where it says value of house, how much do you owe on it? They'll also ask about any additional homes. They'll also ask about what is the value of your retirement. And everybody on this Zoom call is saying, what? How is that? That's not fair. Okay, just so you guys know, the CSS profile form is a very general form. So every school has had the option to throw questions on and what they want to do to determine how they give out their money. Just because the school, the question is on that form doesn't mean that school is even paying any attention to that question. It's very personalized. So for the sake of assets, meaning like how much is in your retirement, most schools are not looking at it, even though it's a required question, just so you guys know, okay? In a case of divorce and separation, folks, for you guys who have asked, a lot of schools will ask both parents to fill out this form, the custodial parent and the non-custodial parent. The non-custodial parent can't do anything until the form is done from the custodial parent first. Then an email is sent to the non-custodial parent, and then they start with the form as well. You can come to the College Planning Center for both forms. I just ask that whoever's taxes I'm using is the person that needs to be in front of me, okay, or on the phone, okay? Now, FAFSA form, free. Remember I told you that? Free application for federal student aid. CSS profile, you can thank the College Board for that. They tend to charge for everything. So there will be a fee for the college. It's like a $16 fee plus an initial registration fee that makes it like the first school $26, and then it's $16 from that point on. So make sure that your child really knows that they want to apply to this school before you put it on the form, because that can get pretty costly. I think you all would agree that you know, seeing what it costs to actually send out the admissions application, in addition to those costs, it gets sort of out of control. So make sure that your child knows where they want to apply for school before they fill the CSS profile form out. Please bear in mind, when you make an appointment at the College Planning Center, you got to have a handle on where your kids are applying, because the form asks for the schools, all right? So here's the way this is the way the process goes. And I'm going to give you a little timeline right now before we even move. Your kids are juniors. If you're juniors right now, you are exploring. You're starting to do the online virtual. You're starting to say, okay, well, these schools are the ones I want to apply to. 6 to 8 schools. I'm a big believer in 6 schools. I don't feel like you need any more than that. They're starting to pull together. They're going on the Common App. Common App is something in the admissions process. It's the actual application for your kids. It's a great thing because you only have to fill out one Common App for all the schools. Your child, I think I don't think I have to tell you, but moms, we get kind of funny this way. We're a little controlly sometimes. I think we can all agree with that. We have to make sure that this is our kids' process. With respect to admissions, hands off, I would recommend let them do their Common App, okay? If you want someone to take a look at their essay, I think parents, please do take a look at their essay. Send it to the College Planning Center. We'll take a good look. And then, you know, when it comes to the financial aid process, then you're going to make your appointment at the College Planning Center, start your FAFSA, CSS profile if necessary, okay? During all this time, you're applying for it all together, so it's a little crazy, all right? Once everything's in, you're going to wait for an acceptance letter. Make sure your children keep an eye on the portals that they get sent from the colleges because it'll have to-do lists for them, all right? Then in, say, usually about March, you get a financial aid award letter, and that is a letter coming from the colleges that your kids get accepted to. And those award letters are going to list everything that they're giving you for financial aid. So you don't get anything from the FAFSA, you don't get anything from the federal government, you get it all within this neat, tidy piece of paper from the individual schools. So if your child applies to 6 schools and gets accepted, you get 6 financial aid packages, all right? You may have to accept these financial aid packages to tell the schools you want them, all right? You should also just keep an eye if there's any additional information that they need from you. I have a lot of parents calling now and saying, oh my God, the school says that I didn't do this on the FAFSA. I want you to take a step back because they're not saying that to you at all. It's just that we get nervous. They're saying, in addition to the FAFSA, we need some more information. When you get those kind of letters from the school, reach out to the school. A lot of people tend to reach out to us, and unfortunately, it's not a College Planning Center thing. Nothing we can do for you. So always keep an eye on what the school is asking from you, okay? Okay. So both forms are only done online, by the way, all right? And this is how you get collegeboard.org is where you get the CSS profile. All right. If you want now to get a handle on the participating colleges, you can also go under collegeboard.org and look under participating schools that require it, okay? All right. Here's what I want. These are the important things, guys. If you downloaded the financial aid presentation, fantastic. Take a picture of whatever you have to do here. You need to, this is a very important step. When you apply for the FAFSA, prior to that, you guys have to get what we call an FSA ID. And this is the website that you're going to get it from. You need one for your child and one for you as a parent. The purpose of this FSA ID is it becomes your electronic signature, and it also allows you to pull your taxes from the IRS onto your FAFSA. And by the way, that is how the schools want it to be. So when the option comes up, you do that one, okay? Okay. Every school requires at least a FAFSA if you want to get any federal aid, and some do require the CSS profile. Once you do your FSA IDs, then you're going to go under fafsa.ed.gov as soon as you can after October 1st. I don't want to come across that I have a sense of urgency for you because, again, every school has their own filing deadline. When you start filling out the FAFSA, you will always also start the CSS profile. So when people come in to see us, they make it the appointment for both forms, okay? Now, for the CSS profile, your child already has to have a username and password. That is how you're getting into that CSS profile. As a parent, you do not create one for you. You go in through your child's, okay? And again, pay attention to financial aid deadlines at the schools because if you miss your deadlines, you miss a whole bunch of financial aid.
Stacy, quick question.
Yes.
If you have a FSA ID from an older student, will it be the same one?
Absolutely, parents. If you're sending your second one to school, you're going to use your older, that's yours for the rest of your children. Only the new student will need one. Okay. Some schools, like I had said, people call the College Planning Center and say, you guys didn't do this or whatever. Some schools may have supplemental financial aid forms that they need, in which case you simply send them in and that's that. Okay. Here's where the financial aid office becomes a special circumstance for the woman or man who asked about COVID. It's called a special circumstance. So you need to make sure that once you get your financial aid package and you let the schools know that you're going to need to appeal it based on a COVID-related job loss or something like that, or anything, regardless of COVID, it could be anything.